Hello and welcome to the vBrownbags. I'm going to be talking today about the 10 steps to the cloud. Now this is a typical architecture diagram of VMware vSphere, where you basically have a bunch of underlying servers, hypervisors, and everything's underneath them. The first step to the cloud is really to look at this a little bit differently. It's all about operational changes as well as some physical changes. So the first change we're going to make is we're going to basically abstract all the physical out of the picture. We have a cluster, we have ESXi, but you know what? They're beside. You don't need to think about them anymore. Think about the VMs, think about how you're going to manage the virtual machines. Worry about the hypervisors later. The second step is to add some IT as a service portal. In this case, we added vCake, or VCAC. And that portal allows us to actually give some IT and produce a service catalog. Again, you notice that these red lines and other lines are entry points into our current environment on management, an entry point to the VMs, support, and so forth. The idea is to think about this very, very differently. The third step is to add some automation. In this case, we added in VCO to help with vCake, and we also have some VCOps to manage all this. So what the idea is to add in enough automation to manage your workloads. You're really talking about VMs here. Yes, you can deploy ESXi hosts, but divorce yourself from thinking about the hosts and think about the workloads and how they look and interact with your end users. Now, the next step is to find some organizations or trust zones. So step 4 is we're actually looking here. I'm defining my organizations using resource pools. If you look before, I have resource pools, but I have VMs next to resource pools. I have resource pools next to resource pools. The idea in my case is to actually make everything a resource pool. So I have an organization A with its VMs, and I have an organization B with its VMs and sub-VMs that are all part of a set of resource pools. This is one abstraction you could use. You could actually use another abstractions of folders as well. The next step is to define some organizational networks, some boundaries for inside these resource pools. You want to make sure your VMs that should be talking to each other are talking to each other, and the ones that should not be cannot talk to each other. So inter-organizational networks. Between all these, you may want to have some firewalls. Now, most people may not actually get past this step, but we're starting to think about the operational changes and the mindset changes that go with migrating to the cloud. Step 6 is to classify my applications. That's an operational change. You're going to want to classify them based on the data that's inside of them. Possibly you want to classify them by trust zone. In the physical sense, what we're doing is we're actually moving those VMs around inside the resource pools. In this case, we're actually adding them into the vApp construct. Each vApp is a way of classifying the applications and bringing in together what is part of the application. Step 7 is we want to define those classification vApp networks. What are the networks inside of that classification of the applications? How do these apps talk to each other and amongst each of the components? Understanding how they talk to each other will help you understand how they can be talking to each other within a cloud and moving your way there. Again, this is more of an operational issue than it is a physical issue. Step 8 is to define some virtual data centers. Now, this is truly an operational mindset change. The idea is that if you can look here, this looks really similar to vCloud Director, and it's supposed to. I have a provider, VDC, which is all my management around my workloads. My workloads now have a concept of a virtual data center. That's organization A, organization B. These are operational changes, not really physical changes. All I did was change the architecture diagram to get to this point. So I'm actually thinking about the environment very, very differently. Step 9 is to add in some security. You're going to add in security at every little piece that you can. In this case, I'm putting firewalls inside of my vApps. I'm making sure my VMs are segregated from each other as necessary. I'm adding endpoint security. I'm actually adding firewalls between my authentication authorization, my orchestration layers, and possibly between my security layers, other security layers in my physical hardware. In a lot of ways, this is more about operational placement of security than it is anything else. And step 10 is to introduce the whole concept of the cloud. And here we're talking vCloud, but you're actually you now have get to the point where you are actually classified as a cloud. When you do that, you're actually starting to think about, you've gone through these 10 steps that are operational changes, physical changes, but the vast majority of them are still operational changes. It's a change in how you think about your environment and how you architect the environment. Now that I have a cloud, I could actually use this to talk to VCHS or other ways of moving between multiple clouds. So those are the 10 steps. And there's a bonus step. And that bonus step is to actually redesign all your applications specifically for the cloud. Now, that's another 10 steps to that. But the idea is now that you have a way of looking at the cloud, a way of looking at the operations that you need, operational changes, now you can start thinking about how to redesign all those apps. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day, and I hope you had a great show. Guys.